Hello, it's Stephanie here. I just felt compelled to post a video after reading this really fantastic book that I highly suggest to anyone. And it is called The Concise Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. This is a condensed version of his other book, which is, I believe it's called The 48 Laws of Human Nature, and that book is much larger. I think it's like 500 pages. This one is much smaller. It's even condensed in the fact where you can literally like take it with you in your purse and just have it on hand if you are sitting in a waiting room and want to read something. And the way that it is set up, it's very reader friendly and it keeps you kind of intrigued and wanting to read more. It also brings up many valid facts that are not just surrounded or based upon, narcissism and narcissistic relationships, but it also brings up, many traits that we tend to have within ourselves that we don't necessarily always realize or are aware of. And it kind of gives you a guidebook as to how to master maybe some of our own character traits that aren't so pleasant that, we just didn't really realize up until now. So I wanted to share just a couple, which I thought were really the biggest important ones, especially for myself. So this is the very first chapter, chapter 1, and it's Master Your Emotional Self, the Law of Irrationality. You like to imagine yourself in control of your fate, consciously planning the course of your life as best you can, but you are largely unaware of how deeply your emotions dominate you. They make you veer toward ideas that soothe your ego. They make you look for evidence that confirms what you already want to believe. They make you see what you want to see, depending on your mood. And this disconnect from reality is the source of the bad decisions and negative patterns that haunt your life. Rationality is the ability to counteract these emotional effects, to think instead of react. That's a huge one right there. To think instead of just react. To actually take a step back, cool off, think, then come back to the situation, as opposed to just immediately going off based upon your emotions and what you're feeling in that very moment, is huge. To open your mind to what is really happening as opposed to what you're feeling. It does not come naturally. It is a power we must cultivate, but in doing so, we realize our greatest potential. So this one I definitely took home because I realized, and I felt really foolish in a sense, because after the narcissistic relationship I was in, I spent a great deal of time being angry and resentful, which, we're human. You can only do what you can do, And I don't think it's till you're ready to kind of put that anger and resentment to the side that you become open to actually realizing that your reactions are within your control. The narcissist saying awful, terrible things to you, not in your control. What's in your control is if you choose to internalize those terrible things that they say that aren't even true. And what is also in your control is how you react or respond to what this person, this toxic person, is saying. And there was another section here. So this is related to beware the inflaming factors. Low-grade emotions continually affect our thinking, and they originate from our own impulses. For instance, the desire for pleasing and comforting thoughts. High-grade emotion, however, comes at certain moments, reaches an explosive pitch, and is generally sparked by something external, a person who gets under our skin, or particular circumstances. The level of arousal is higher and our attention is captured completely. The more we think about the emotions, the stronger it gets, which makes us focus even more on it, and so on and so forth. Our minds tunnel into the emotion, and everything reminds us of our anger or excitement. We become reactive. Because we are unable to bear the tension this brings, high-grade emotion usually culminates in some rash action with disastrous consequences. In the middle of such an attack, we feel possessed, as if a second limbic self has taken over. It is best to be aware of these factors so you can stop the mind from tunneling and prevent the releasing action that you will always come to regret. You should also be aware of high-grade irrationality in others to either get out of their way or help bring them back to reality. So I think we all can relate to that, especially when, he mentions here, in the middle of such an attack, we feel possessed, as if a second self has taken over. We all know that we've been in those moments where a toxic person will say just the right thing because they know that it's going to get under your skin, and you tend to go from 0 to 100, you see red, and you act so out of character. And I mean, it really is something that I know for myself, I've come to regret. I think about certain instances where I was just so angry. I did not think at all. I did not take a moment to step back, analyze, kind of conduct myself in a better manner. I just flew off the handle. I gave the toxic person exactly what they wanted, which was me upset, yelling, making a scene. And in hindsight, I am embarrassed by it, and I do regret it. And even on my healing journey, I'm guilty of seeking some kind of vengeance for his actions. And it turned me into an extremely, extremely bitter form of myself. And, instead of approaching the world still in a pleasant manner and not being blind, of course, to any red signs indicating that a person may be toxic, I kind of set off into the world just assuming everybody is bad, everybody is toxic, everybody has a hidden agenda, and was very closed off to meeting new people in general. I stayed home daily for months. I now, have a different kind of job where I do work in a restaurant. It's only 2 days a week because I am going to school. but it's been a good way for me to kind of integrate myself back into a more social setting. And what's good about it is it's only 2 days a week. So then I have the other 5 days to kind of recoup, regather, and then return. I am definitely a very introverted person. My alone time is kind of like my solitude in many ways. It's almost a necessity for me because I need that time to just sit, be alone, process my thoughts. I like to read, certain books, especially, books like these. And when I don't get that alone time, I feel like I'm just very disoriented, if that makes sense. So, that brings me to another subject, which is having a child. And having a child with a narcissist at that. So, do narcissists make great co-parents? Of course they don't. They typically aren't even really the greatest of parents. What I've gathered so far, and this is me now being separate from the narcissist and me kind of being more of an outside looking in perspective at this point, I can clearly see what his idea of being a good parent is, right? His idea of being a good parent is buying my daughter unnecessary toys or dolls that she doesn't need as a way to compensate for the fact that he blew her off, the past 2 weekends he was supposed to have her, right? His idea of parenting is to be the fun, cool parent that doesn't really set rules, doesn't really tell her, no, you can't do that, that's wrong. Doesn't ever say no, really, so she's already learning what she needs to do to try to manipulate people to get what she wants, and she's 4. So it's been very challenging trying to raise a child with a person like this for many reasons. The first reason being they're in 2 different households now. At mommy's household, there's rules. I don't cave in. If we go to the store, I tell her we're going to the store to get this and this only. She says okay. Every time we get into the store, she always manages to find her way to the toy aisle. And just recently, I had taken her shopping and I said, we are only at the store to get you school supplies for preschool and clothes for school. That's it. That's all we're getting. We get into the store, we get all the stuff together. Now, as we're going to approach the register, of course, we just so happen to go by the toy section. She finds a Barbie. She wants the Barbie. I tell her, no, you cannot have the Barbie. She pitches a fit. She, standing there, refusing to leave, starts screaming, yada, yada, yada. And do I feel bad for the people in the store that have to listen to my child yell and scream when I tell her no? Of course I do. But at the same time, do I feel super embarrassed where I'm like, oh, when I cave in just for that fact? Absolutely not. No. So unfortunately, if you come across me and my daughter in a store and she's not getting a toy, you will hear a whole lot of yelling and screaming on her part. So long story short, I didn't cave in. She didn't get the toy. She pitched a fit the whole entire time through the checkout process. in the parking lot, not wanting to get in the car, still stuck to my guns, did not get her the toy. Now, is it totally her fault that she reacts this way? Not necessarily. I take into account that she is confused because there's no way to co-parent with a narcissist. It's parallel parenting, which is a term I heard on some YouTube video I was watching, but it's very accurate because you're not co-parenting. You never are in agreement about anything. And typically with the narcissistic parent, they are always, everything's a competition, right? So they want to be the favorite parent even though you are the one that does a bulk of the parenting, right? You handle the responsibility aspects of parenting. They want to be the fun, play, I'll see you when I have time, but I'm the fun parent because when you come here, we'll play Barbies for 6 hours because, you know, I've had the last 2 weeks to just do whatever. So it's very frustrating on our end when you're the responsible parent who actually handles everything that comes along with a child, like health insurance, doctor's appointments, registering them for school, making sure they get their school physical, you know, taking her to dance class, making sure she brushes her teeth, you know, trying to teach her right from wrong. And, you know, we're the ones who are always there, constant, but you can't help but kind of feel some type of way when the narcissistic parent just kind of swoops in. And because the child is so desperate for time with this parent, they tend to, oh, you know, daddy. And, you know, it used to make me sad because I just really feared that due to the fact that he does speak badly about me to my daughter, that he would turn her against me at some point. However, the older she's getting, I do think that she does kind of start realizing that there is a difference between mommy and daddy, you know? So I do feel very confident that when she's older, she will see her father for who he is. And I, no matter how tempting it might be, don't ever speak badly about her father because it's just not going to accomplish anything. So I just wanted to read one other section here. So this is strategies towards bringing out the rational self. Despite our pronounced irrational tendencies, 2 factors should give us all hope. First and foremost is the existence throughout history and in all cultures of people of high rationality, the types who have made progress possible. These types share certain qualities: a realistic appraisal of themselves and their weaknesses, a devotion to truth and reality, a tolerant attitude toward people, and the ability to reach goals that they have set. The second factor is that almost all of us at some point in our lives have experienced moments of greater rationality. This often comes with what we shall call the maker's mindset. We have a project to get done, perhaps with a deadline. The only emotion we can afford is excitement and energy. Other emotions simply make it impossible to concentrate because we have to get results. We become exceptionally practical. We focus on the work, our mind calm, our ego not intruding, If people try to interrupt or infect us with emotions, we resent it. These moments, as fleeting as a few weeks or hours, reveal the rational self that is waiting to come out. It just requires some awareness and some practice. So then it goes into some strategies to help you bring out your rational self. You know, one of them being increase your reaction time. This power comes through the practice and repetition. When some event or interaction requires a response, you must train yourself to step back. This could mean physically removing yourself to a place where you can be alone and not feel any pressure to respond. Or it could mean writing that angry email but not sending it. Cool the emotions down. The longer you take, the better, because perspective comes with time. So true. Another one is accepting people as facts. Interactions with people are the major source of emotional turmoil, but it doesn't have to be that way. The problem is that we are continually judging people, wishing they were something that they're not. We want to change them, and because that is not possible, because everyone is different, we are continually frustrated and upset. Instead, see other people as a phenomena, as neutral as comets or planets. They simply exist. Work with what they give you instead of resisting and trying to change them. Make understanding people a fun game. The solving of puzzles. It is part of the human comedy. So again, these are just a few really insightful paragraphs that I read. I highly suggest to anyone and everyone to get this book. It even gives you tactics if you have to deal with a difficult or toxic person in your workplace, ways that you can handle that person and essentially, be able to stay at that job if you need to. I bought this on Amazon and it's a great read. So thank you for listening.